Okay, so get this, listeners. We are diving deep, deep into the occult today, but with a twist.
A twist.
You guys sent us some really interesting research on Halloween.
Yeah.
Like talking to the dead and all that. But here's the thing. It all connects back to Islamic teachings.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these different cultural and religious ideas kind of come together,
Right.
especially in this YouTube video. It's from this popular Arabic-speaking channel called Anas Action. I think it's in Arabic.
Yeah, that video, it traces Halloween back to the Celts.
The ancient Celts.
Right, the ancient Celts and their festival of Samhain.
Samhain.
I've heard of it, but to be honest, I don't know much about it.
Well, think of it this way. The Celts, they believed that on October 31st, the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead, it got really thin.
Oh, okay.
And spirits could cross over. So they would light these huge bonfires, wear costumes.
Oh, so that's where those traditions come from.
Yeah. And they would make offerings to the spirits. Maybe trying to, appease them or even scare them away. It was like the ultimate Halloween party.
But with a deeper meaning.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did this ancient festival become this Halloween we know today?
Well, as Christianity spread, these pagan traditions, they got mixed with Christian ones.
Okay.
Like All Saints' Day on November 1st.
All Saints' Day?
Yeah, a day to honor all the Christian saints. Over time, they all kind of blended together to create the Halloween we celebrate now.
That makes sense. Something that really stood out in the video was this idea that spirits linger on Earth. Like they stay in the places where they died. He'd even said that they're trapped for a year and then released on November 1st, right after Halloween. It's like this brief moment when the two worlds collide.
It's definitely a powerful image.
Right.
And it ties into how we're still so fascinated with, communicating with the dead.
Yes. And we got some research on that too, right?
Yeah.
Like people visiting places where someone died, using objects the person owned, even like hearing responses, like they're reaching across that veil, trying to make contact. But doesn't that clash with Islamic teachings about the afterlife?
It does. The video actually brings that up. That whole idea about spirits sticking around contradicts the Islamic concept of barzakh.
Barzakh. Okay, for those of us who aren't familiar, what is barzakh?
It's kind of like a waiting room.
A waiting room.
Between death and resurrection. So when a person dies, their soul goes to barzakh, which is a separate realm.
Yeah.
And they exist there until the day of judgment.
So no ghosts haunting houses or, talking to psychics.
Not in the Islamic view, no. The soul isn't tied to the physical world after death.
That's interesting. Well, what about all the stories people tell about talking to the dead? What did the video say about that?
Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting. They talk about the Islamic concept of jinn to explain those experiences.
Jinn. Okay, I remember reading a little bit about jinn. They're like these supernatural beings. Right?
Exactly. In Islam, jinn are beings that are made from smokeless fire, and they exist alongside humans, but we can't see them.
Okay.
The video suggests that what people think is contact with the dead could actually be jinn, like they're impersonating the deceased.
Hold on. Are you saying these jinn are tricking people? Making them think they're talking to their loved ones?
It's not necessarily about tricking them. It's Islamic belief is that everyone has two companions.
Your companion.
An angel encouraging good deeds and a jinn tempting them to do bad things. And according to the video, these companions stay with a person even after death.
So the jinn companion, having been with the person their whole life, could, mimic them.
Yeah, basically. It's like this spiritual echo. And it could make people think they're talking to, to the dead, but really they're talking to a jinn.
Whoa. This is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about ghosts. We've gone from, ancient Celtic festivals to modern-day ghost hunting to Islamic ideas about the afterlife and jinn.
Yeah, it's pretty complex.
It is, and kind of spooky, too.
Definitely makes you question what we think of as supernatural.
Right.
Is it really the dead we're connecting with, or could it be something else? What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know what to think anymore.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right? It makes us question everything. And we're just getting started. In the next part, we're going to get even deeper into jinn and their role in the unseen world. Before we move on, I think it's worth pointing out that the video creator seems concerned, they're worried that some people are, getting too caught up in this whole idea of talking to the dead, they're straying from Islamic teachings.
Right, because if you believe in jinn and barzakh, then, trying to talk to the dead goes against your faith.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of highlights the tension between, like, ancient practices and how things are interpreted today, especially in a religious context.
Okay, so we talked about Jinn being behind those spooky encounters. But are they all mischievous tricksters? Or is there more to it?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. The video, it emphasizes that jinn they're part of Islamic belief, just like angels. Like they're even mentioned in the Quran. And just like humans, they have free will. So some might be inclined toward good and others toward evil.
So it's not like they're all good or all bad.
Right.
It's more about them having their own, like, agency, making their own choices.
Exactly. The video, it doesn't say that jinn are, like, inherently evil, but it does say that, you shouldn't try to communicate with them. Like, it suggests there could be spiritual consequences.
Okay, that is a little unsettling. It makes you wonder, like, what's the risk? What could happen if you try to talk to a jinn?
Well, the video doesn't really go into specifics about danger, but it implies that, engaging with them, it could open you up to their influence.
Right, because they can, like, mimic the dead. They know stuff about us.
Yeah.
And they can be good or bad.
Exactly. It's a complex dynamic.
So if we're not supposed to try and talk to them, how do we protect ourselves from, unwanted jinn interactions?
The video says, seeking refuge in Allah, reciting certain verses from the Quran,
Okay.
and basically adhering to Islamic practices. Like, it emphasizes strengthening your faith as a shield.
It's interesting because they're not talking about rituals or charms or anything like that. It's all about, like, inner strength and faith.
That's a really important point. The message of the video is about grounding yourself in your faith and, relying on that connection to protect you.
Okay.
It's saying that by focusing on these Islamic principles, people can avoid being misled by, people claiming to contact the dead or interact with jinn.
It's like it completely changes how we think about the occult. It's not about, like, seeking out spooky encounters.
Right.
It's more about understanding these things in the context of, like, faith and spirituality.
Absolutely. It shows how different different cultures and religions interpret these things. What might seem spooky or paranormal to one person might have a totally different meaning to someone else.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening, honestly.
Yeah.
We went from, the origins of Halloween to this Islamic concept of jinn, and it's clear there's just, like, so much to learn about different cultures and beliefs, especially when it comes to the spiritual realm.
And it really it underscores how important critical thinking is.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with the supernatural. You got to evaluate the evidence, look at different perspectives, look to reliable sources.
You're right. We shouldn't just, accept things at face value.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the unknown. This conversation has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, me too.
Like, if jinn are real and interacting with us, I mean, what does that even mean for how we see the world?
It adds another layer to our perception of reality. You know, it suggests that there might be forces at play that we can't even really grasp, things our senses can't detect.
Right. And if they can influence us, even in, like, subtle ways, does that change how we think about free will?
Now, that is a profound question, and it's one that people have debated for centuries. It could take us down a lot of different paths.
I think we've only just scratched the surface here, but I think we need to take a break for a minute, gather our thoughts. We'll be back with the final part of this deep dive soon. And we'll try to grapple with some even bigger questions about the unseen world and how it all affects our lives. All right, so we're back, and we're ready to finish our deep dive into the occult. We've talked about Halloween's origins, the whole lingering spirits thing, and that Islamic concept of jinn.
We've covered a lot, yeah.
We have. From, like, ancient rituals to how we view things today. It's pretty clear that the occult, it's a lot more complex than we might think.
It really is.
This whole conversation about jinn, I mean, it's really made me question things, but it's also left me with some pretty big questions. Like, how does all this stuff about, the unseen world, how does it actually affect us day to day?
Yeah.
I mean, talking about jinn in theory is one thing, but how might they be, like, influencing what we experience?
It's a good question. And, we were talking about that jinn companion earlier.
Right, the one that tempts people to do bad things.
Right. And the video, it suggests that this companion, it doesn't just disappear after a person dies.
It's like a persistent shadow, but one that knows us really well.
Exactly. It has all this knowledge, right? About the person's life, their habits, their secrets even. And the video seems to imply that this jinn companion could be behind some of the things people think are hauntings or, communicating with the dead.
Okay, now that's kind of creepy. So are you saying that if someone's grieving, right, and they start noticing weird things like stuff moving or sounds, maybe even whispers, could it be like their loved one's jinn companion?
The video presents that as a possibility, yeah. And it's not necessarily that the jinn is trying to be mean or scary or anything. It might be trying to connect or offer some comfort or even, maybe take advantage of the person's vulnerability.
That makes it even more difficult to figure out, right? How can we tell the difference between a real spiritual experience and something that might be a jinn?
The video really emphasizes knowledge, like knowing more about Islamic teachings and having a strong connection with God.
So it's like arming yourself with knowledge and faith so you don't get misled.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that, there are forces out there that we can't really understand, but we have ways of dealing with them, right? Within our own traditions and beliefs, we can navigate this unseen world with wisdom and discernment.
This whole deep dive has really got me thinking. We've explored so much, from ancient Celtic festivals to these Islamic beliefs about jinn. And it's clear that there's so much more to learn about, the unseen world and how it affects us.
There's always more to learn, right? The key is to approach it all with an open mind, but also a healthy dose of skepticism, I'd say, and a deep respect for what other people believe. After all, what one person might see as a ghost story might be a really profound experience for someone else.
You're absolutely right. And for anyone listening who wants to keep exploring, there's tons of stuff out there. Books, articles, other podcasts even. You can look into Islamic teachings more. You can research how different cultures see the afterlife. You can even look into the history of, paranormal beliefs.
It's a fascinating journey, and you never know what you might discover. It can help you understand yourself and the world around you in new ways.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the occult and how it connects to different cultures and beliefs. Until next time. Stay curious and keep exploring the mysteries of the unseen world.